there, and welcome to last Monday marketing chat for February. Paige has been deep into thinking about onboarding some new support in her business, so we thought we would talk today about who, not how. Did I get that right? Who, not how, yeah. For photographers. Really thinking about how you outsource different parts of your work and how to do that intentionally.
Yes. And there's a book by this title and it's incredible. So if you haven't read that, I highly recommend it to everyone, no matter what business they're in, because it's just so helpful in thinking about how to get things done in your business. And I know as photographers, we feel like we need to wear all of the hats. And I hear from so many people like, well, I can't afford to do that. And then they turn around and buy props. And so this whole topic is kind of understanding where your money is really going and how you can spend it, because you can afford anything, but you can't afford everything. And you have to kind of figure out like, what is the right way to spend your money accordingly to give yourself the most amount of time, give yourself, time freedom, and then also move your business forward. How can you use that money to move your business forward versus just having fun things to play with?
Yeah. And I think there's always, we're going to get to this later, but there's always that time versus money problem, right? And when you're at the very beginning of your business, you do everything yourself and it takes a really long time, and that's understandable, but you cannot grow your business indefinitely by doing it yourself, because there are just not enough hours in the day and you can't be an expert in all the things. And eventually it makes more sense to hire someone to do it faster than you could. To like really grow the business. So hopefully what we're going to talk about today, if you're in that position where you realize you're going to have to start doing some more of that and not just the cute props when you feel like it, like how do you start to make those decisions? Because it can be a little scary to commit the money to it when you don't quite know what else is happening. But also, how are you going to start bringing more clients unless you build your business better? So
yeah, and I think that photographers generally, we're all creative visual people. And so it's really easy to fall into that. Well, I'm going to make more money if my images are better. And that mentality of if I can just pose these babies better, if I can just have cuter props, if I can just have a better studio, like all of those things that visually might make your images stand out to you, make you feel really proud of your work is so like, of course we want that. But at the end of the day, and like for as long as I've been doing in-person sales, I've realized that the like highest quality image when it comes to like the best pose or the best styling or something that I'm like, oh yes, this is like, I'm so proud of this, is not always the one that parents pick. And it can be kind of heartbreaking when you've worked so hard on those aspects. But if you really truly want to make a change in your business to be more profitable, you have to think beyond that like visual part of your images into what is actually going to make me more money, what is going to move the needle so that we can spend more time with our families, not stay up till 2 a.m, and just have a better quality of life while still being able to focus on, like the things that bring us joy as photographers in that visual aspect. And if you can get those other things taken care of, all of a sudden you do have the time and money and resources to buy all those fun props and go to the posing workshops and, do the stuff that's going to visually move your images forward as well. But you kind of have to take care of the stuff where it's actually going to make you money first.
Right. Well, and I think it can be real easy when our focus is the creativity, like you say, to be like, it's 90% good, but like, I just want to make it even better. But if the marketing side or your customer service side is at 20%, then you're going to get way more improving those and leaving your, perfectionism of your images at that 85 to 90% and coming back to that when everything else is a little bit more level in your business.
Yeah, definitely. So I have been on a new journey to switch my CRM, which I think we've talked about in past Mondays. And it takes forever. Everything feels like it takes so long. But I've really discovered that in looking into, I'm switching to Go High Level from Tave. And Go High Level is incredible and it has so many options, but because it has so much, it's overwhelming with how do you set it up correctly? How do you go about choosing the way that it's laid out? How do you, build the most like understandable system for your clients and workflow and take all those like pieces out that are manual? Like I want to remove as much as possible from me and my assistant Jen's plates when it comes to sending emails and text messages and things like that. I know you and I have talked about so much of, like automating that workflow and having those templates made. And that's made a massive difference in my business over the last 5 years. But when I really analyze where I can make some major changes, it is in creating those automated workflows like that are super seamless. Because right now they're 75% automated. Like they are automated and they're much better than when I started, but they're not like I can just walk away and book clients without me or Jen doing something. So that's kind of the idea behind this Go High Level move for me, is how do we make it run really efficiently? And as I started looking into it, I realized that this is not a area of expertise for me, which I knew, right? But sometimes you believe, I can just bootstrap this and I can do it. It's going to be fine. I can figure this out. I'm good with this stuff, right? Yes, I am. I do really feel like I could do this. I could learn how to do this. But at the end of the day, I don't want to be a Go High Level expert. I want to know it well enough that if something breaks, I can maybe go in and fix it. Or if somebody's built me a workflow, I can go in and change it from one mini shoot to the next, or things like that. I don't want to learn how to build it from scratch, and I don't have the time. And my time is better suited to do other things. And that's kind of the premise of that Who Not How book, is figuring out what your tasks are. Like, what do you love to do? What is your I don't want to give this up. And for me, that's editing. I don't want to give up shooting, and I don't want to give up editing. Those are non-negotiables for me as a creative. That's what I want to do. Writing blog posts is kind of a gray area. Like I can let Claude do a lot of it. I can let somebody else do a lot of it. I want the final little pieces to be done by me so that it really feels like my voice and like I'm telling the story. I'm teaching the things that I feel passionately about. And then there's stuff that I don't want anything to do with. And one of the very first things that I outsourced was bookkeeping, because I hate bookkeeping. I don't want to do it. It's a pain in the ass. And it's the beginning of March, right? And everybody's probably in that boat of oh no, I've got to do all my business taxes right now. And now that I've used a bookkeeper for the last several years, I haven't had that oh my gosh, I have to do this and I don't want to, and I'm going to put it off until the last minute. I don't have to do that anymore because I hired this, and it's well worth spending that money on it every month so that I don't have to deal with it. And also my system is better organized now because of it. So that's kind of the thought process of choosing who to hire. And now that I'm hiring, I had to figure out, how do you decide what it is you really need? Mm-hmm. And so one of the things that you and I had talked about is writing down all the things that you need to have done to be able to outsource those tasks that you just don't want to do. Yeah. And there's some things on my list that I would like to be able to outsource, but ROI wise, they don't make a ton of sense for me, even though I would really like to. It would make my life lovely. And if I ever get to the point where I really do have a lot of expendable money to move around and hire freely, I would hire somebody like a social media manager. Well, and I think most of my clients don't come from social media.
Right. So it's not worth it. And I think that's where we've talked about this in the past. It's really worth understanding the value of your time. So how much time does it take you to run a whole client project, and how much do you get paid for that? And from that, you can kind of ascertain what your hourly rate is for doing your business. And the only way you can know what the ROI is of hiring a social media manager or anything is saying, what kind of input do I get from that money wise? How long would it take me? Oh, and if my hourly rate is $100 an hour, say, or $50 an hour, if I can hire someone that's going to be $12 an hour to do that, clearly that would be worth my time. But you can't, until you've done those numbers, you can't really know whether the ROI works or not.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and hourly rates can be really tricky, because I charge $150 an hour to retouch for other people. And most people would be like, what are you talking about? That's ridiculous. That's an absurd amount of money, but I am really, really fast. So what takes me 10 minutes is going to take somebody else an hour or 2 hours. So it's not equivalent, because if you're say charging $50 an hour and I'm charging $150, and somebody says, oh, well, I'm going to hire Jill because she's $50 an hour, but it takes you 6 times as long as me, all of a sudden you didn't save that much money because you actually spent a lot more, even though your hourly rate was a lot lower. So hiring that can be kind of tricky.
Right. And it's worth thinking about that when you're looking to hire. Sometimes the big number that somebody says it'll cost X for the project can be scary. But the hourly rate is not like the number of hours it will take you is much longer probably than the number of hours it will take an expert. So maybe the number sounds high, but like how long are they actually going to spend on it compared to you? So digging out what all of that means and understanding when someone charges an hourly rate, it's always going to be difficult to know exactly, but I feel like usually they can give you estimates, you can put top limits on it, not to go above a certain amount. Like there's ways of kind of putting guardrails around that.
Yeah. And I think it's like one of the things that I really struggle with is like interviewing people, because I usually like people. Like I generally like people's personality. And when I see a resume and they're like, oh yeah, I can do these things, and I start to talk to them, I want to hire them on the spot because I'm like all excited, like, oh, this sounds great. But what I've discovered over the years of doing that is like the initial person is not always the right fit, even though it feels like it in the moment, because as you talk to more people, you figure things out. And so I just talked to somebody the other day who was like, I can build your whole Go High Level system. It'll be $2,000. And I was like, that's phenomenal, because I had talked to somebody else a month ago who wanted 25,000 to build my Go High Level. And so 25,000 was like, thank you very much. I don't think that's going to work for my photography business. And so, like you look into other options. So this guy I'm talking to is telling me $2,000, and I'm like, that sounds wonderful, right? And he tells me it's going to take him about a month to build it. So I'm on the verge of hiring him. I talked to somebody else who tells me he can do it in about a week and it would cost like $280, like $280. And so I'm like, okay, now, is that true? Can he really build it in a week for only $280? I mean, that's incredible if that's true. But it makes you question that other guy that's telling me it's going to take a whole month and cost $2,000. So it's interesting as you're going through that process of like, okay, what do I trust? What am I willing to buy into? One of the things that is selling me on the guy that is less expensive and faster, beyond those things, less expensive and faster, is he also is looking for an ongoing relationship. And so I think as you choose to outsource, you have to decide, is it somebody that I want for like this one project? Do I want him to just build my Go High Level system and then like buy? Or do I want somebody that's going to build it and then like help me if something breaks? Or do I want somebody that's going to build it for me and then build the next thing for me and build the next thing? And that's kind of what I want. I'm at the point now where I want someone who is going to know my business really well and understand when I want to run a new campaign, or I want to, try something entirely new or change my website. And I can just be like, hey, so-and-so, I want you to build this for me. And he can go, yeah, got it. And do it in a week, do it in 2 weeks, whatever. Because right now I can't do those things. And I signed up for this in January. It's now the end of February. And like, we still haven't got a system. So leaving it just to me, it's never going to happen. I'm going to be years from now and we're 2030. And I'm going to be telling you about how I'm just about to got my Go High Level system built.
Well, and it's always interesting to listen to this is like, is the cheapest the best?
Yeah.
Maybe, but maybe not. And here's how to think about it, because that's how our clients usually are when they're listening to us. Unless you're on a real race to the bottom in your prices, there is probably somebody that your clients could pick that's cheaper than you. So thinking about all of that, what's factored in there that makes you say, well, why am I not sure about that person? What still is interesting about the person who's that middle number? That's how people are assessing you. And so what things do you need to know about them? What do you wish there was more information about on their website or in emails, or when you have discovery calls, or do you want to see portfolios or client, testimonials? That's all the same kind of things people are thinking about you.
Yeah. And I think like the way that people respond to things, I had somebody that responded to me in kind of like, I want to say like an unprofessional way, but not in a like he was rude. It was just like a lot of emojis, a lot of smiley faces and exclamation points. And for me, that doesn't jive with my business. That's not how I like to communicate. That's not how I want someone to communicate for me. And so even though this person wouldn't necessarily be doing any of my communication, I do think it's really important to like kind of read between the lines there and say, this just isn't quite the right fit for me. And then the other thing I was going to say is I do have a third person that I'm interviewing actually tonight for my Go High Level build. His asking rate is by far the highest that I've talked to. And I'm not ruling him out because there's a lot of things that he says on his resume that kind of make him a unicorn, in the sense that there's 2 roles that I'm hiring right now: Go High Level, and then also someone that can turn my video content into reels, basically. So I want someone that can go into my educational videos, trim them down, make them all nice and pretty, and then also make a reel out of them that can go onto my Instagram and like repurpose content. Not necessarily a social media manager though, more of a video editor. And so I posted 2 separate roles for those 2 things, because I think one of the things that people kind of get bogged down in is, I just want one person that can do it all. But not everybody's an expert. Not everyone is going to be able to do all the things. And if they say they can, a lot of times they actually can't, or there is other things that they're really good at. That's not to say that they're not valuable, but maybe not in the same way. Like, I've had 2 studio managers now. My first one was so good at organization. Like, she kept my studio completely organized. Everything was folded. All the laundry was done and everything was organized nicely. But she was sick all the time. She had all the excuses. We always had issues surrounding stuff like that. My new manager is always on time. She's always early. She's like incredible in all the ways my first one was not, but she's not all that organized, and I always have dirty laundry. So there's gives and takes to all of these people that you're hiring, and you have to kind of figure out what it is that you want, right?
And that maybe it's nowadays you can hire for such specifically niche things, and it can be small amounts of money. So you can hire 2, 3, 4 people. Doesn't mean you're spending more than you would if you hired an assistant. It just means you're getting the experts on their narrow fields of what they do.
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm saying. So this third guy that I'm going to hire, I'm going to interview, is, maybe that was a Freudian slip. Maybe I am.
Yeah, we'll find out next one.
Yeah, we'll find out. But I think that the thing that's interesting to me about him is that he does say that he is a Go High Level expert, a social media manager, and does video editing. So is he good at all of those things? Is it worth it to pay him a little bit more, because it would be 1 person in my system versus 2, and he could automatically post those things for me and keep it all aligned and have, all the pieces all in one place. So it's kind of maybe it would be worth paying him just a little bit more to do that. And I'm not sure what the answer is yet, but those are all the things that I'm kind of analyzing as I'm going through I don't have a massive budget to outsource, but I do have a little one. And what are my key priorities? I'd like it to be social media managing, but that's not going to bring in the money. Automating my system is, because it's literally going to save me hours that I'm having to pay my studio manager to do it for me, or it's going to save me my own time, and it's going to allow me to use that time in other places, or my studio manager to use that time in other places, so that we're not sending the same email over and over. We're not responding to leads that are not perfect fits for our business because our AI is, or our website is optimized to be able to handle all of that, and kind of weed those people out so that the ones that we actually talk to are the ones that are going to be perfect for working with us.
And I think the other thing that this was making me think about a little is just the slippage that can happen, even if you have your systems in place and you think they're really good. Over time, who your ideal client is shifts a little, or you start adding slight manual pieces into the process to make it work with the slightly new version that you did in spring, and then now it's fall, or vice versa, or whatever it is. And so there's always a kind of like widening and slippage of your processes and systems over time that I think it's always useful. Like, it's a pain, but it's a good opportunity to tighten all that up when you're like trying to put new systems in place.
Yeah, well, and I think that you have to move your business along as people move along, and especially as newborn photographers, because the people that we're working with are changing. It's a new generation of people having babies now. Like, my youngest is 8. So the people that, and my oldest is almost 14. So that group is different. Like my generation is different than the late 20s now that are just now having babies, and they don't want to communicate in the same ways. Like they don't want to get on a phone call, it seems. I was just in a Facebook group yesterday or this morning, I can't remember. And there was someone talking about how she's always had her phone script down. She gets people on that getting to know you phone call. It works wonderfully. And she's always gotten people to convert. And all of a sudden it's not working. She's like, I don't know if I've changed something, if people have changed, what's going on. And, like you and I have talked about, like meeting that client wherever it is that they want to come into your system, and not just being like, well, you have to do a phone call. That's the only way to work with me. And being amenable to those changes of how do we meet them where they're at. It doesn't mean that they won't spend money with us. Like just because someone doesn't want to get on a phone call doesn't mean that they won't drop 10 grand on their newborn photos. They absolutely will. And actually I found that a lot of times those people that do not want to get on the phone call with me and won't respond are sometimes my best clients in the end, because they're busy moms and they want my help. They just are so busy that they can't even be bothered to respond. And so when you finally get them to, and you're like, look at all the things I can do for you, I can be super helpful to you. They're like, oh, thank God. Yes, here, take all my money and do this for me.
And sometimes the phone call can be someone who's really unsure, and you have to spend a lot of time coaxing and persuading, and maybe that's the right fit.
And sometimes they still don't book, and they're just kicking tires trying to figure it out, and it's still not a good fit. So I think that is one of the big things, that if you can find a way, I know that like so many people are freaking out right now because like, oh, where are all of our clients? It's this time of year where you hear me talk about this all the time. Like, oh my God, it's February and everyone hates me. I suck and no one's going to come in. But I think that's the point of like figuring out the outsourcing and figuring out your systems, because that allows you to then, like, for instance, we have run Facebook ads in the past, and it gets super overwhelming because you get all these responses, which is lovely. That's what you want, right? That's what you're paying for. But being able to reach out to that many people is almost impossible. Like you can't reach out to that many people. You can't get that many people on the phone. And if you can, you're just wasting so much time on so many people that are not the right fit. So is there a way that you can have someone build something into your system that allows those people to be filtered, allows you to still give them a great experience, but maybe not that, like, I have to get on a phone call with you, I have to spend my actual time to be able to get you to convert. I think that there's other ways to go about it that allow you to get more people in your door without that, like, okay, I spent all this money on ads and now like none of them converted into actual bookings.
Right. And that's that time v money thing again as well. Like if you have to spend all your time talking to the people once the ads have been done, and you have to personally do the filtering, there's bound to be some wastage of time in there, a little or a lot, depending on what happens. So yeah, is it worth outsourcing some of that to systems, and maybe to somebody helping you set up the systems, so that it's not your time that's involved always?
Yeah, I think that the two books that have helped me the most in my business are Who Not How and the Profit First book. And there is a Profit First for Photographers book now, which is pretty cool. And it's by a bookkeeper that took the whole Profit First system and like made it just for photographers, like speaks to the photography industry. And I think that the reason why those two things go in hand is because if you build the Profit First system, you can see where you actually have money. You can see where you're paying yourself, and you can see where you have extra or not. And maybe that means that you need to adjust your pricing, but it allows you to see where you have that extra money. And in that, now you have that extra money that, like, this could actually be put somewhere else. Where am I going to put it? Am I going to put it towards props?
Yeah, or something else. Well, and I think I'm in like a business book club, and we read Profit First last month. I did not read it because I did not have time, but I understand what it is about. But we were talking about that sense of what actually, do you have a good sense of what your profit is and what your operating expenses are? A lot of people don't really have a good sense of that. And it's really easy to potentially be swayed by the promise of nice props, or a system where you're like, if only this was done properly, then I would bring in more clients and make more money. And maybe that's true and maybe it's not. And sometimes we have to take risks in our business. But if there's physically no money left to buy that thing, the decision is weighted differently in your mind then of like, can I actually spend the money on this? Is this risk worth it because the money's in the bank, or because I would have to take that money out of my profit to do it? So I think it's really helps you assess the risks and the benefits and the rewards when you're making those kind of decisions.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that people underestimate how much money they spend on little things too. And that system can really help you figure out like where your money's really going. So that, you know, you're actually paying yourself. And like, if you're set up to transfer money into your own account as like your payment, and then all of a sudden you don't have enough money in your operating expenses budget, like you have a problem with your pricing. You have a problem with the people coming in, you know, like who's spending what. Maybe you need to charge more. Maybe you need to have more clients. There's lots of ways that you can fix that problem, but that system allows you to figure that out. And I think that it all goes together, you know, like if you know your numbers, then you know what you can hire, and then you can actually move things forward because you've got that money set aside. And, you know, maybe it is that like, I really want to hire the third guy that I'm going to talk to tonight, but I just can't afford him. Mm-hmm. And it's not reasonable to spend that money. So I'm going to hire the guy that said he can do it in a week for $280 and hope that it works out well. And if it doesn't, maybe then I start saving to be able to hire the more expensive guy. And maybe it's patchwork together for the year until I can actually afford him. I mean, there's lots I'm definitely not going to afford the $25,000.
That's a lot. Well, and I was also thinking that we have talked a lot about what you hear on the social media platforms about how much profit people make, or how much revenue, not how much profit, how much revenue people make. And you can hear coaches, business coaches, and probably photography business coaches throwing out big numbers here and there that can feel impressive or scary if you're sitting there thinking, I don't make that amount of money. But I think potentially, if it's like a profit first for photographers, getting a sense of what those percentages are somewhat normal in your industry, then if yours is wildly out, at least you start to know that you're coming from a more factual basis of, gosh, I'm not making as much profit as the average photographer, you know, roughly is in this situation. Or maybe your numbers are better than you think, and you actually have space to do more growing, and you just don't realize it because you're. Before I kind of implemented that system, I just didn't spend any money out of my business account because I was terrified that I would have to go to taxes, and I was pleasantly surprised to discover I could take a ton of it out there because there was more than I thought I could take out as profits.
Yeah, well, and I think that the thing with hiring is like when you hear those big numbers, like I can think of one photographer in particular. He has 2 studios. He makes over $1 million a year, and it sounds amazing, right? Like he makes $1 million a year on his studios. I want that. I'm going to want that, but I want to make $1 million a year in my studio and have 800,000 that's being paid to me. And that is a very different thing that I want than just having $1 million studio. So I think when you're considering these outsourcing things, you have to figure out like what that balance is, because are you outsourcing to the point where you've outsourced so much that now you can't pay yourself because you've outsourced everything? And like maybe you're shooting, but you have so many different salaries to pay and contractors to pay that now you have nothing left. So that's the other part that, you know, I remember seeing some statistic with like Amy Porterfield's Digital Course Academy where she'd made like $5 million in sales, but like 4.8 million of that was like in how she paid her team or something. I can't remember what the actual
I think a lot of it was actually like affiliates as well, which is not, I mean, we don't
affiliates and Facebook ads.
Right. She was having other people sell for her. She had a lot of employees. If you have a studio, you may end up, depending on where you are, spending a fortune on rent. So yeah, like I think it's easy to have the conversation in one direction, which is you're scared to outsource and it is worth doing. But the balance of that is only you know by looking at the insides of your business which parts of it make sense to do. Or the actual deciding which ones is always going to be difficult. That's strategy and it's really hard. But you need to know what kind of pool of money you're taking from or what you're willing to risk. I think a lot of times people just kind of bet on the farm and they go all in and they think, well, this will hopefully this leads to a whole load of success and money coming in. But yeah, if do you know like how much are you sending back out again in payroll each month? So
I think that's the whole, like, doing your numbers and figuring out how much money do you actually need to make, like, for yourself, like take home pay for you. I mean, I know a lot of times people will say like, oh, I want to make 6 figures, but like, do you want 6 figures that's yours, or do you want your business to make 6 figures and then you actually paid yourself 20 grand? Like, there's a big difference there. And I think that's the part that people kind of forget about, is like, actually, I want to make 100 grand, which means that if my, cost of doing business is like, I'm paying myself 25%, that means my business has to bring in 400,000 to pay me 100, or whatever your numbers are. That's maybe an exaggeration, but like, if you haven't figured out what those things are, like, I can tell you, for the last 3 years, this is another benefit of hiring my bookkeeper. For the last 3 years, I've pretty consistently had my product cost at 20%. And so I know that like my products and everything from my packages are going to be about 20%. So if my package is $1,000, say, I'm not actually being paid $1,000. I'm taking $1,000, but I have to pay 200 to get that thing for my client, and then on my time on top of that. So it feels like, oh, I just made $1,000. No, I didn't. I made 800 minus my overhead, minus my studio manager fees, minus my outsourced, social media.
yeah. Well, and I think the other thing though is, and this is where the balance keeps flipping, right? You could go down this line and say, gosh, this is all a lot. I'm never going to outsource anything. That sounds terrible. But the other thing is, you're just talking about how much time, once you go high level running, that it will free up for you and your assistant.
Yeah.
If you do that yourself, but it takes you 6 months, as opposed to hiring someone who's going to have it done with you this week, like, how many more clients potentially can you bring in and run through and be making profit in the time that you would have sat there in nights and weekends trying to figure out how to set it up?
Well, exactly. And so, I mean, most of my sessions are anywhere from $2,000 to $4,000 is kind of my area. So let's say it's $3,000, just for sake of, averages. If I hire this person that said he could do it for $2,000 and it's going to take him a month, if I have one extra client because of that, I have now paid for that service, and now I have the system that I can continue to use that is going to bring in those clients. So like you just said, like, having somebody be able to do it in that 1 month instead of the 6 months that it would take me. And I would assume that this person that can do it in 1 month is going to do it a lot better than I would be able to do it in 6 months, because I'm going to not know what I'm doing. I'm going to build it badly. It's like when my husband tries to build anything, he has to build it 4 times because he doesn't actually know what he's doing, even though he wants to do it himself. So
it takes a little while till you get to the final version.
So hire the professional, and you're actually going to save money because you didn't have to go to Home Depot 12 times.
Right, all those tricks. But also even if we take the first client you get, say in March, pays off the $2,000 for the person you hire and a little bit more. There's also the fact that for the next 5 months you get 1 extra client a month, say. So then all of a sudden we're now at like 15 grand extra minus your cost. So I think that's where you have to take some risks, but also we have to get down to specifics of numbers like this to start to assess whether it's worthwhile or not. And that's where we can't just kind of go on the vibes of like, oh, this would be good, this sounds like it will work. It's like, what does it actually mean for your business on a month-to-month basis?
I think part of outsourcing too is taking a leap of faith that like this thing is going to pay off. I mean, that's true too with like education courses. Like when I took my first IPS course, it was like $2,200, and I was like, this is a lot of money. I'm not sure if this is the right decision or not. I took a leap of faith, spent that money, and within like 2 months, I was consistently making $2,000 sales. So it's obviously paid off over and over and over for itself over the last 7 years since I took that class. So there's little things like that, maybe they'll pay off, maybe they won't, but I think that's part of the process of like going through, writing it all down. What in my dream world would I actually be in charge of, and what would someone else be in charge of? And how much money do I realistically have to spend here? And is it somebody that can do it from overseas for a little bit less expensive, or do I need somebody to be local? Like there's all those kind of factors that can play into who you're choosing to outsource. And then, like I said, like, is it a long-term project or is it just a short build or a short thing that they're taking care of so that it's built once and then done? Like,
Yeah.
you know, I always think about like the lawyer templates. Nobody ever wants to spend the money on the, what is it? The legal page. I should remember that one. The legal page is her name. And she sells, you know, photography ready, like legal contracts. And I don't know, they're like $300-400, I think, for most of them. And then, but then it's done.
Then it's done. You don't need to think about it.
Like be Googling how to write a model call contract. You don't have to try and steal it off the internet. You don't have to like hire your own lawyer that's going to cost you thousands. You buy the template, you install it, you're done, and like moving on. So like that's money well spent because it's something that you check off your list. And that's sometimes some of these like outsourced projects, is it's something that you're just checking off the list.
Yeah, it can be a one and done. Well, and then I think, not to move too directly into selling our templates, but somewhat, is that there's often a middle position, which is that you outsource some of it and you do some of it yourself. So with our workflow templates, they kind of fall into that middle ground in that you're paying to get the base level set for you, but you're not paying for them to be completely bespoke with all of your information in them. So you have to spend a little bit of time, but the time is limited down compared to what it would be if you were trying to cobble this together from all different bits and pieces that you'd found across the years that you'd used. So is it worth thinking about, especially if you're unsure about the risk of the cost involved, is it worth looking at a hybrid where you do some of the work, but it just doesn't take, like, a lot of the base level work is done for you?
Yeah, exactly. Like, I think that if you think about it in terms of like visual aspects, like if you wanted to hire somebody to say, create you like Canva templates, you could then go in and plug and play, like, this is my new blog post and this is my new picture. And it looks all pretty because somebody built you 8 different layouts that you can use over and over. Same thing with our stuff. It's the exact like layout that then you can go in and say, okay, like I want to change this and this and this, but it's so much easier. I think a lot of times for the photography industry, people sell like a newborn photography guide, you know, and it's some Canva pretty PDF guide that you can download and share with your friends. The difference with what we're selling versus that is a lot of times that is the layout. You're buying the Canva design, you're buying, this is where your photo goes, and this is where your text goes, and this is where your photo goes, and this is where your text goes, which is fine and great, and it looks really pretty. But if you don't know what to say in the text,
what are you putting there?
what are you putting there? And most of them do have the like ipsum elium, whatever it's, you know, like not actually what you want to say, or it's super basic and it doesn't give you what you really need, or it's really generic to any kind of photography. It's not specific to newborns. And so I think that that is what really sets our stuff apart, is we are giving you exactly what to say, and then you can turn it into your own voice by really personalizing it and making it like specific to your own studio or your own policies, whatever it is that makes you different. Because obviously we can't create something that's going to work for every single person, but the general outline, whether you're a studio newborn photographer, a combo like me where you're doing lifestyle and studio, or you're an in-home photographer, you are following the same steps. Your clients need to know the same things over and over. They need to understand the same things about how you're going to work, what it's, you know, how are they going to get their images, what is the process.
What's the expectations? Yeah. And I think the other thing that we didn't really realize when we were doing it, but is really useful, is that if you haven't really got those standard repeatable process in place, this is basically Paige's repeatable process in place. So like you can just use Paige's system if you want. Probably what you'll find is you'll go in and say, oh, I do it a bit like that, but a bit different. And so instead of starting with zero and having to try and figure out what you do, it's easier to write yours because you can say it's not like that, it's like this, and that allows you then to go and shift it into what yours is. But it reminds you that there are 4 steps, and then maybe you're like, I actually have a 5th step and I need to add that in, rather than just looking at a blank little paragraph in Canva that's this long and thinking, what will I fill that text with?
Yeah. Well, and I think a lot of times people think that if you just put it into Claude or ChatGPT, you can say like, okay, I need to create a newborn photography guide for my business, you know, tell me what to teach my clients. And they're going to come up with something Maybe it's right, maybe it's wrong, but most of the time I found that it's pretty darn wrong. And I mean, that would be the same thing with like outsourcing as well. Like you can outsource and have someone create that for you, but if they don't know what to say and you don't know what to tell them to say, now how are we doing this? Are we just making it up? And I think the benefit of using ours is like it's 9 years of me filling those gaps in my work. Like I started with one thing in 2017 and now almost 10 years later, we're at a totally different looking workflow because I've had those issues. I've had the clients that have shown up and said, what do you mean all the digital files aren't included? And I've figured out how to write it into my emails. I've figured out when they need that information. I've figured out, you know, how all those pieces play together so that we're not having those issues. And, you know, like I said, like it's going to be different for every single business, but there are very, very similar timelines and expectations from your clients. No matter if you spend, if they spend $100 with you or $10,000 with you, it's the same.
Yeah. And I think that's the kind of system where however you figure out what yours is, once you've done that hard work, it's done. And you can think about it way less on a regular basis. Once, you've put some kind of system in place and outsource that in whatever way you can, whether that's templates, whether it's a person, whether it's hiring an assistant to come and like write some of those things for you on a regular basis, whether it's paying for AI and which would be a little less, or maybe paying for somebody's custom GPT that helps you fill in the dots, So there's lots of different options of outsourcing, I think, is what it sounds overwhelming because we're like, there's as many ways to do this as there are people who do it. But also, I think we both know from our businesses that they wouldn't have grown to where they are without using other people and outsourcing things to experts who are not us to help us like guide us in the right direction.
Yeah, I think it can be hard to let go too of some of those things, especially if you have been wearing all the hats for so long, is understanding that someone else can do this job as well, if not better than you can be a little bit overwhelming sometimes. So you kind of have to have that like humbleness of understanding that somebody else can do this too. And they can actually be very, very helpful if you allow them to be helpful. I think it's easy to feel like no one can step into our worlds and do it as well as we can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that might be where the baby steps are templates or one-off small projects. Like we're not suggesting you go hire a full-time studio manager or assistant right now in your business, or second shooter, say, if it's like helping take the images, if you want to keep that part for yourself, you do. Paige, you love the editing, you never want to outsource that, but lots of people who do and are like, they're want to outsource that part. So I think with so many things we talk about is it's your business, it's your decision. We can't really give you like a one size fits all answer. And I think that's what frustrates us sometimes that we hear on social media is like people saying, this is the way. It's not. The way is your way.
I also think you can like really dabble in it. Like you don't have to, like, I think sometimes people are like, well, I have to hire a studio assistant because I need help with my twin sessions. And so how do I pay someone 40 hours a week? You don't. You find someone that wants to do it for $25 an hour once a week or twice a week or whenever it is that you need them. And you find somebody that's flexible. Or, you find somebody that does it a little while and then you say, you know what, like I had somebody that I was hiring, I was outsourcing doing Pinterest posts from my blogs for me. And I got to the point where I was like, this isn't moving the needle. It was $250 a month. So it wasn't like massively expensive, but also wasn't like just chump change. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't really making a difference for us. I wasn't seeing more inquiries come in from those blog posts. I wasn't seeing a ton of extra traffic. And so I got to the point where I was like, we tried this. I gave it a good year to like see if it would make a big difference. And it just really didn't. And so that's okay too. You might hire somebody and realize like, this isn't what I thought it was going to be, or maybe this isn't the right fit. I think they say, hire slow and fire fast, because like you should really think about who you're hiring. But then if something's not working, don't be afraid to be like, this isn't working.
Well, and I think that's to kind of bring the conversation round full circle. When you started, you were saying like figure out what you need to hire for, is that maybe you have some metrics about what success means, right? I want to hire someone and the end result of this will be X. And if that's a small project, like my Go High Level is finished, that's easy to spot if you succeeded in that or not. But if it's hiring a assistant or like a second tutor, or if it's hiring a social media manager, it's like, well, when, like, put a date in your calendar, when are you going to go back and analyze if you feel like that cost is helpful, and it's okay to say no, and make sure there's like a get out clause. I have to put my old lawyer hat on and say make sure there's some kind of way to assess that, and that you can in a friendly manner terminate the contract if it's not working, and move on and try something else.
Yeah. I like outsourcing. I think it can really give you a lot of time back. And that's one of the best things that you can do for yourself as a business owner, is give yourself that time with your kids, give yourself that time to sleep, or just, take a minute, go watch a Netflix show, take a bath. Like, we need that so that we can continue to be creative. And if you can find somebody that can help you get there, it's worth every penny. And I think if you can, get over the fact that, like, yes, this is going to cost you money, but hopefully if you've done it well and you've chosen correctly, it's making you more money than it's costing you, and giving you something incredibly valuable in return. And that's your time.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, I am excited to hear next month whether you have a finished Go High Level or not.
Wouldn't that be great? Fingers crossed, because I'd be so excited to tell you at the end of March that it's all done and we're like fully using it.
Or depending on who you pick, that it's maybe almost finished and you'll have answers.
I mean, that would be exciting too. Like, honestly, if I can have it all working by, May, I will be thrilled. Like June, whatever, like halfway through the year, if we can transfer over and like have a fully automated system that we're very rarely having to touch. Oh my gosh.
I think when I think about it for your business, it's by that busy fall season. Like, you want to be taking out all those little, which is like kind of annoying right now, but whatever, you want to be removing all that friction for your fall.
Heck yeah. Yeah. And I think to just have my last little point here is this time of year is when we should be doing those things, because it does take so much longer than we think it's going to. And the years go by so fast. Like, I can't believe it's March. It's wild to me. And, like, it's going to be June before we know it. Then I'm going to be in the summer with my kids and it's going to be fall. And so just like you said, it's like, we have to do it now so that when we get to those crazy seasons, it's done, instead of going through another crazy season. It's not happening in the fall. So then we're pushing a whole year and then we're back
to January again, and it keeps going right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm excited to hear that next month. And obviously, if anyone has any questions, except for maybe the specifics of Go High Level, which maybe we'll get into that in another video in the future.
Yeah.
Right? But if anyone has any questions about outsourcing, then let us know and we're happy to answer them.
Sounds good.
All right. Thank you.
Talk to you soon.